Hey everybody, welcome to the Dollar Vigilante interviews, brought to you by Schweizerreich Metal Handles, and also brought to you by the Dollar Vigilante Internationalization and Investment Summit, coming up on February 18th, 2016, right here on the beach in sunny Acapulco, Mexico. Really happy to have on a guest that I had on in November, Bo Polny of the Gold 2020 Forecast, and we put a fairly significant title on that video saying there was going to be a fairly decent crash in November. I think a lot of people assume that because we use the word crash, that because there was no absolute devastation in November, that he was wrong. But looking back on the charts, I think he was dead on right about a fall happening in November. And since then, he's actually, I follow his newsletter, he actually put out a lot of information expecting that there would be a much bigger event happening around the 4th of this month of January, 4th and 5th of this month. And we saw that one for sure. Absolutely. The Chinese stock market was only open for about half a day on the first trading day of the year, fell 7%, and they closed the exchange. 3 days later on Thursday, it fell about 7% in about 15 minutes, and they closed the exchange for the day again the same day or the next day, depending on where you live. The Dow Jones was down nearly 400 points, and the Dow Jones is actually down nearly 1,000 points, or actually over 1,000 points in the last week alone. So Bo has been quite prescient, and one of the reasons we had him on originally was because he was quite prescient on calling the markets in the fall of 2015 as well. He followed the Shemitah as we did, and he actually was one of the people saying that the big crash wasn't going to happen in September and that we had some of the numbers wrong. And of course, we didn't know what quite to think of that at the time, but after there wasn't, we did see a massive major crash around the world in late August and into September, but it didn't go into a massive crash after that, actually rebounded, and he said he expected that to happen. So that's why we had him on the first time. Now we're going to have him on the second time. He'll also be speaking at our upcoming conference in Mexico, so it's going to be really great. It's Bo Polny. Great to talk to you again, Bo. It's been quite a week in the markets.
Jeff, thank you for calling, and it's really appreciate being here. So thank you, and it's been really nice meeting you and getting to know you more. So thank you.
Yeah, you as well. Let's start where we left off last time. Last time we talked was, I believe, November 1st, and you were expecting the markets to go down that month, and they did. So why don't you just start there and take us from there into where we are now?
Sure. So what I did was, just before this interview, I sent you a few charts, and hopefully you can post this one. But basically what it shows is as of December 1st, so we were looking right around the end of November for the market to start to roll over and fall. I did a second interview with Future Money Trends right on the 2nd of December saying the markets are supposed to drop right here. And so when you look at the charts that I illustrated, there's two yellow zones, and we describe the charts of Australia, London, Japan, India, S&P 500, Toronto, China, the Switzerland, and the DAX, all of which fell in the exact first 2 weeks of December, which they cavitated or dropped straight down.
Is that November or December?
That was the very, very start of December.
Okay.
So that was December 1st, and it fell for 2 weeks straight. So right as November ended, it crashed for 2 weeks straight. So that was the crash that we were first looking for.
I see.
So when you do cycle work, price is less important. What's extremely important are the day counts and time, okay? So the fact that it started right where it started at the end of November into the very 1st of December, and it cavitated for 14 days or 2 weeks straight down, that was the exact pattern that was supposed to happen, and it did. Following that, when you look at the chart, we had an upcycle, and the cycle was another upcycle, so this would be compared to like the August low, and then it was an upcycle from August. It ran all to November. That's when we did our interview on November 2nd. So that was a cycle high. That was a reason for doing the interview on November 2nd, because that was, again, a cycle high. So now it dropped into the second week of December, and then the stock markets have risen back up into the first week or the beginning, the very, very start or the very end of December. So that was a 2-week rise. From that time point, I know we were in communication right around Christmas time, the 23rd, we were talking via Skype, and we were kind of deciding when to do the interview, but I said in there, what we should do is we could either do it at several places, but one of which will be right around the 5th of January, which would be a final warning before the markets are supposed to cavitate back down. And look what happened this week. Perfect. It crashed all the way back down, and the Dow fell over 1,000 points, which you mentioned, but Hong Kong and China. See, but all the markets are interlaced. Some will fall more than others. Okay, so everybody's talking about China, for example, but no one's talking about Toronto. even though I know you're from Canada, Toronto markets are as ugly as China. China and Toronto both broke the August lows. So they're both trading below support right now. And in addition to that, all the other world markets have fallen since the very, very beginning of January. So that's where we are in terms of the cycles right now.
Yeah, it certainly has been very interesting, and that's why I really wanted to have you back on. Unfortunately, we couldn't do it before the last crash, even though you did tell me personally it was over Christmas and all that. But there's many more crashes to come. And actually, I don't think we've even gotten started yet, do you?
Oh, no, absolutely not. So that this is just the warm-up. So if people are expecting to, the funny thing is people are buying these lows. It's going to be very painful because this is just warming up for what's to come as the year progresses. Today, there's the interview. We're doing it on, January 8th, after the market's closed. I did send you a second chart, I just quickly did up, and I sent it off to you. And it's titled, Applying the Definition of Bear Market Trend to the U.S. S&P 500. So hopefully you can illustrate that as well too. But it's a beautiful chart because it illustrates what a bear trend is. A bear trend is lower highs and lower lows. Okay, and the chart beautifully shows it. It basically, we did an interview with several different people right in July, on the 20th, specifically because the cycle count we did. We knew on July 20th that would be a final top for all the world markets, including the U.S., okay? So we've got that. It was the interviews posted on our webpage, but just to show that it happened. The point is, and the drop came into August, and then August was a low, and then everybody was talking about Shemitah is going to be a crash, but again, as we talked, Jeff, the cycle was up from August all the way into November. So the Shemitah could not have caused a crash. But in the last interview, the reason we said it wouldn't cause a crash was because the Shemitah was coming in on a Jubilee year. The Jubilee year changed everything, okay? So what it does is it adds an extra year to everything. And so because, yes, it's been happening every 7, this time it happens on an 8. So it actually changes. So therefore, because there was no crash doesn't mean that Shemitah is not going to happen. It will next year. But in the meantime, we have a whole Jubilee year. And the Jubilee year is a year of cleansing. And so you're talking a market crash. Biblically, this is a year of cleansing. And so everything gets wiped out. Debts get eliminated biblically. But basically, the markets get hit very, very terribly. And all of this, believe it or not, will happen before the expected Shemitah date of next year. Okay, I'm not saying next year. I'm talking this is actually 2016 already. So all of it will happen before October or a little 29 of this current year of the year 2016. So we have a market crash that's set up, and it's, as you can see from even today's close on all the world markets being January 8th, everything has crashed. And so if you look at the chart that I illustrated, we've got a lower low, which occurred in November. That was actually, and then we have another lower low, which occurred in December, and now we have a third low that just occurred in January here, and the markets landed right on support. So we might have a little bounce here for a few days on the markets. So it's coming together very nicely, but again, lower low, lower low, lower low. That's what's going to happen. Eventually, when the support breaks, it's a free fall, and it's a complete meltdown and crash, and that's coming, not too far away.
Yeah, as I mentioned at the beginning, the reason that I actually didn't know you before this, even though you're fairly well known, I wasn't aware of your work, and it was I think it was after the Shemitah ended in September 13, 2015, and we were going through numbers and looking up information and trying to see why the markets didn't follow through after the major crisis, collapse, crash that happened in world markets in late August, and I came across your video, and you had predicted before the end of the Shemitah year that we would be wrong. Well, you didn't say us in particular, but of course we were one of the biggest people talking about the Shemitah. The people who were talking about the Shemitah, you said would be wrong because of your cycle analysis. And it's very interesting that you've pointed out that you think because it's a Jubilee year now, so this is the 7th Shemitah. So for people who don't know, Shemitah happens every 7 years. This is the 7th Shemitah now since the last Jubilee, which was in 1967, which is when Israel won the, 6-Day War. So this starting in September of 2015, began the Jubilee year, and of course the UN had their Jubilee session of the UN, so they are aware of this Jubilee. Interestingly enough, the Pope just in December declared it a Jubilee year out of the blue, because they normally have their Jubilee years on different years, every 25 years, I believe, and he said it was an emergency Jubilee year. So the Pope seems to know about it, the UN seems to know about it, and what you're pointing out is that you think because of that, the Shemitah has extended for 1 year, which is very interesting. So Elul 29 is when the end of the Jubilee is, correct?
That's correct. Elul 29 works out to for the year 2016 on October 2nd of 2016, which I believe is a Sunday. And then the first trading day will be the September 3rd, which is a Monday, which is also the Jewish New Year. So it's really interesting how this is coming together. But again, the Jubilee year, to be really clear here, I see 3 events. Okay, the first of which is going to relate to gold and silver, which is supposed to be absolutely spectacular. Okay, the second is an event which we're talking about right now, which is the market meltdown, markets crash, world market meltdown. That's what we should be seeing next. And then again, we have a date for the low, for the bottom, because all the cycles now, because they're all landing precisely on time points, that allows us to forecast when this low will come in. And again, just for the reason being, even because of January it turned like it was supposed to, it's really giving us very, very nice, precise time points going into the future. And the third point that we're supposed to see is, I use the word event for October 2016. It could be a stock crash. I'm not going to get into all the details of what I think it could be, but the point is, just like in 9/11, right, there is an event. And so there's events, and there should be an event that could and should happen at that time point as well. But that actually is going to be the third event prior to gold move, prior to a stock crash, and then come October.
Yeah, it's been very interesting to watch the markets lately, especially for us, of course, because we've been predicting a lot of crisis and collapse, and it has been happening. But as well, we're also predicting for gold and silver to do very well. And at the very beginning of the year, it sure looks like it's off to a great start. Gold has been up, I think, almost every day this week, and the markets have been down almost every day this week. So this and the markets, this is the worst start to the U.S. stock markets in history. There's never been a worse year than they've had so far this year in the first week. So this is a real something to take notice of, because especially with what we're talking about, and then at the same time to see gold rising fairly dramatically for gold, and Bitcoin, of course, as well. But gold, to see that happening, it looks like everything that you've been saying and that we've been saying at the start of the year so far has fallen into place.
That's true. The stock market, I gotta tell you, has been coming along so perfectly, so beautifully. We may not have got the massive crash that we're looking for in the early part of December, but we got the pattern out beautifully. Now it rose up and it dropping again, so it's patterning out beautifully. So the stock market patterns that we're looking for are absolutely beautiful. Gold has been the one thing that's been, we held back, and the cycle keeps inverting itself. But at this point now, I did an interview with Future Money Trends, and basically on December 2nd, I said, if this December low holds, which came in at $1,045, there's an extremely high probability that we could see something truly amazing happen here in a very, very early part of January, or the very early part of 2016 on gold and silver. And it could be and should be truly spectacular. So, I like to use the word price reset, a spike, or an explosion, but it could and should be something truly biblical or something truly amazing that is supposed to be coming very, very soon here. Because the point is that on gold and silver, they've both been stuck in a 5 year, from 2010 as a low and 2011 as a high. That creates a wedge downwards. And they have both been stuck in that wedge for nearly 4 to 5 years. And I believe when it breaks out of this wedge, the movement will be biblical.
It should be very interesting to see. It's definitely looking like everything's going in the direction that we've been expecting to start the year. And humans are kind of funny. It seems like they pay attention to certain dates, and of course, the start of the year is significant to humans, as opposed to say February 12th or something like that. And to see it open up the year just in total chaos seems like a real omen, or a real showing what could happen this year. It's going to be a very interesting year, and so we'll definitely be watching what you're doing. Of course, you're going to be speaking at the Dollar Vigilante Internationalization and Investment Summit on February 18th here in Acapulco, Mexico, and I saw your speech title that you had was the 2016 Credit Collapse and Gold-Silver Price Explosion. So where do you expect we'll be at the time of the conference?
Well, by that time, December is not, let's start here. January is not supposed to be a good month for the markets, okay? So what you're seeing so far is just a warm-up, okay? It's going to get worse yet in January. So this is just a start. And so by the time you're coming into February, I think we could be in a really extremely exciting place for the precious metals. The stock market itself may see a short-term pause in that month. We'll have to see, but that's something possibly could happen. But as the year progresses, month after month, it's just going to get worse and worse. It's not going to be good for the people in the stock market. But gold and silver, and I think Bitcoin will be extremely wonderful places to be positioned in. Even the U.S. dollar, I think the U.S. dollar has been actually interesting, because if you go back to 2008, I'll mention this for a second, but 2008, everybody, when the stock market crashed, what did everybody do? They ran to the dollar, right? So the dollar was a safe haven. But then look what happened this year. Look at August. Stocks crashed. What did the dollar do? It dropped. Okay, so it moved with the stock market. Okay, so those are paper assets moving together. That's pretty unusual. Okay, then I've got the charts in front of me looking at them. Though we had the stock market rise all the way into November, but so did the dollar. Okay, and the dollar even rose with the stock market in to make a second push up into the month of December, the very start of it. And then what happened? For 2 weeks straight, the stock crashed, but so did the dollar. Okay, and then right now, just like yesterday, for example, being the 7th of January, the dollar fell almost 100 pips, 100 points with the stock market crash. Okay, so the point is the dollar's moving with the stock market. The only difference is the stock market's weaker than the dollar. And so the stock market has broken support already. So it's taken out, the stock market has taken out all of the December lows. So it's crashed through it, the U.S. markets. And the world, and China is way worse than that. But the U.S. dollar is soon to break its lows of December, and then it's going to start to get uglier. So in other words, all paper assets are not looking good. So by the time we meet up in Acapulco, I think a lot of supports are going to be broken to the downside on the paper assets, and gold and silver could be looking pretty spectacular.
Yeah, Ed Bugos, our senior analyst at the Dollar Vigilante, agrees with you generally on the dollar. He actually compares the dollar to more like 2000, 2001, that Shemitah year, where the dollar was quite high and began to really break after that. So he sees quite a bit of similarities for the dollar as far as 2000, 2001, what happened there. So it'd be very interesting to see many people like yourself, Ed Bugos. We have so many great people coming down for this conference, and hear what you guys think is going on, get your analysis, hear what you think is going to occur in the future. As you pointed out, it should be the market should be crashing even more in January, and precious metals should be going higher, but it's certainly not the end game yet. But it might be a good time to come down in February and get some really good information and advice on what to do for the rest of the year.
Oh, absolutely. I think so, too. I'm excited to go there and speak and listen to what other people have to say as well. So thank you for the invite on that. Appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it as well. Thank you. So let's, if you have anything else, I want you to let us know about it. Or if you don't, just let people know where they can find out more information on what you do.
I think the most important thing is go to our webpage, gold2020forecast.com. There is a video there that we did in December. I think it covers an amazing amount of detail. It talks about cycles, and it talks about how using cycles, we were able to forecast many past events, and it basically describes how the stock market is now set for a cycle low in the year 2016. But I think it's a very interesting video. It's hard to disprove when you look at some of the mathematics that we lay out within the video. It's 20 minutes, and I think it's well worth anybody's time to look at it, because it basically describes what money is, and money is gold, money is silver, money is something you can hold on to, and what we illustrate in that video is that there is a grand cycle that started in 1764, and that cycle is coming to an end this year, which means that this cycle completes the credit system, and so it could, in essence, cause a credit failure, which is huge, because that's basically, credit is everything in our world.
Yeah, the entire system is based on credit and debt, of course, now. So it's going to be a very interesting year, I think, for people out there who've been waiting or wondering if they should do something. I think you're really leaving it to the last minute to start paying attention to these things. I think Bo would agree with me that we're headed for incredibly serious times. A lot of things are going to go off the rails this year, according to Bo and myself. So if you don't know Bo's work, check it out. If you don't know our work, check it out at the Dollar Vigilante, dollarvigilante.com. And if you'd like to come down and check us all out in person at the Dollar Vigilante Internationalization and Investment Summit, that'll be February 18th on the beach in Acapulco, Mexico. So that's it for the Dollar Vigilante. Stay safe out there.
You have all the major central banks, Japan, UK, Europe, America, all printing staggering amounts of money. The people who are getting that money, Jeff, are very happy, and their friends are very happy.
I believe in 2020 that we will be back into a rip-roaring, snorting bull market.
They may increase interest rates by 0.25% to kind of prove to the world how responsible they are.
Government is always mankind's biggest enemy throughout human history. It always has been. It's what destroyed Rome. It's what everything that's every empire has collapsed, and every war and all the billions of people have been killed. It's all due to government. So it is always our enemy.